Here we go. All right, so 1 Samuel, 28th chapter, beginning at verse 1. In those days, the Philistines gathered their troops for war in order to fight Israel. Achish said to David, "You should fully understand that you and your men must go with me into battle." David replied to Achish, "That being the case, you will come to know what your servant can do." Achish said to David, "Then I will make you my bodyguard from now on." Now Samuel had died, and all Israel had lamented over him and had buried him in Ramah, his hometown. In the meantime, Saul had removed the mediums and magicians from the land. The Philistines assembled. They came and camped at Shunem. Saul mustered all Israel and camped in Gilboa. When Saul saw the camp of the Philistines, he was absolutely terrified. So Saul inquired of the Lord, but the Lord did not answer him, nor by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by the prophets. So Saul instructed his servants, "Find me a woman who is a medium, so that I may go to her and inquire of her." Her servants replied to him, "There is a woman who is a medium in Endor." So Saul disguised himself and put on other clothing and left, accompanied by two of his men. They came to the woman at night and said, "Use your ritual pit to conjure up for me the one I tell you." But the woman said to him, "Look, you are aware of what Saul has done. He has removed the mediums and magicians from the land. Why are you trapping me so you can put me to death?" But Saul swore an oath to her by the Lord, "As surely as the Lord lives, you will not incur guilt in this matter." The woman replied, "Who is it that I should bring up for you?" He said, "Bring up for me Samuel." When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out loudly. The woman said to Saul, "Why have you deceived me?" "You are Saul," the king said to her. "Don't be afraid. What have you seen?" The woman replied to Saul, "I have seen one like a god coming up from the ground." He said to her, "What about his appearance?" She said, "An old man is coming up. He is wrapped in a robe." Then Saul realized it was Samuel, and he bowed his face toward the ground and kneeled down. Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" Saul replied, "I am terribly troubled. The Philistines are fighting against me and God and has turned away from me. Are fighting against me and God has turned away from me. He does not answer me, not by the prophets nor by dreams. So I have called on you to tell me what I should do." Now, the first thing we need to look at is that Saul has kicked out all of the mediums and magicians and things of that nature, because number one, they were forbidden because they were demonic. Okay. So now here's the situation. And this is the reason why I wanted to hit this one real quick is because this is an indication that demonic worship is real and that witchcraft and demonry and soothsaying and psychic and all that kind of stuff, it has a place. And it has always had a place in ancient times as well as today's time. So here's the thing. What do they dabble in that's forbidden? Magic. But why is it forbidden? And y'all at home, y'all can answer too. Just take it off of mute and come on in. It is not, but it's also, we don't deal in demonic worship, right? So therefore, we're not going through Satan or the demons in order to get instruction. So they was taken out of Israel for a reason, but they were brought back. So Saul kicked them out because he was already in trouble, right? So he's trying to please God. He brings them back in. Well, he didn't bring them back in, but he goes searching for one because all the prophets and God, nobody would give him what he wanted to hear. His dreams, God didn't reveal himself. The prophets didn't give him anything. In other words, God was silent. So when God was silent, who did he go to? The demons, right? And that's what this witch of Endor is. So what I want to point out to you guys is that if it's in this word, then that stuff is real. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not about the one thing I've said, and I've taught it before, demons don't know the future. They know the past. All right. So they can dissect your past because they have access to the past. It's already happened. All right. And a lot of times people get involved with psychics. They're like, well, they told me, and they used my zodiac and they told me this, and my mama said this. Well, you're reading right here where this demonic possession brought back Samuel, which God allowed. You follow me?
Yeah.
So that's why the Bible says to stay away from it, because it don't want to change or twist your mind into believing that this is the way that I should go. We consult the Lord. We don't consult demons. We don't consult the devil or whatever you may. So we don't go to these soothsayers and zodiac signs and all this other kind of stuff and looking at the stars and trying to figure out, because demonic possession, it's real. And it brought Samuel back, right? And this woman knew first of all, she knew she wasn't supposed to be practicing because she said it. She said, man, Saul and kicked all, you ain't going to have me killed, but we know they were doing it, but they also had to do it outside of Israel. So now he goes to them, but still he's the king over all of this. And so, he calls them to do, that spiritual thing and to call up Samuel. So Samuel comes up, and at that moment, the woman recognizes, hey, wait a minute, man, you Saul. Now, if she was really knowledgeable, she would have known he was Saul in the first place, right? But now that Samuel has come up, it's been revealed to her, hey, yeah, we ain't supposed to be doing this. God is real. Satan is real, right?
Yeah.
So we cannot play around with this stuff. And people think that, well, they told me this, they told me that. Well, like I said, they have access to that. Well, how do they know what my mama said? Well, that's the past. They don't know no tomorrow. They don't know the future. They don't know what's going to happen next. They know what has already happened. That's it. They're not omnipotent. Only God is that, And so don't be fooled by this stuff. But I just want you to kind of point out to you that it's real, And here's another thing I want to point out to you. The Bible declares in verse 14, he said to her, what about his appearance? She said, an old man is coming up. He is wrapped in a robe. So what do you think that tells you? Huh? No, I'm just saying it's an old man. He's an old man coming up in a robe. I'm trying to get you. Yeah, right. Well, what does it tell you about death? Huh? Not that he's still old. He died old. He's still old. Why is that? I ain't gonna go through glory like an old man for the rest of my life, Emma. Samuel? He was the prophet. Yeah. No, Samuel was the old man. I'm just trying to point out to y'all that, but not even that. Here's the thing. And this is what you look into, right? But Samuel doesn't have a glorified body. So until we all get it, whatever you die as, that's who you are until that time. So that's what that's the insight into that. Because people say, well, as soon as I die, I'm gonna be young. Are you? We ain't never died, but the only glimpse that we have into that is that. When Lazarus came back, he came back the same way, right? So until we get our glorified bodies, so I guess if you go down a little bit girthy, I guess you'll be girthy until the glorified body comes in. I'm just saying this is a little glimpse of it. Don't quote me on the whole thing of it, But all I know is when he came back, he was old. But when he died, he was old, Jonathan. Yeah, because at this time, God had removed himself from Saul. So that's why it was silent. He had already, and when you read earlier in the Samuel, Saul had already messed up when he tried to become the prophet. He tried to do what the prophets do, and no, God said, that's it. That's why David got anointed. So God has already removed himself from him. So God wasn't playing. If you read the scripture, Samuel was the one that was pining, talking about, man, Lord, he's like, how long are you going to keep crying over Saul? It's over. I've removed my spirit from him, and now it's on David. So now Saul, he told you why he was afraid. The Philistines around me, I don't know what to do anymore, and no prophet is telling me nothing. God ain't giving me no, I don't know what to do, period. And so a lot of times that's what people do. They get to a point where they become frantic and they don't hear from God. And they say, well, look, let me try this psychic. I'm missing somebody. Let me go talk to them, and trust me, it's church folk to go over to these people, and they be like, yeah, well, he told me about this, or he told me about that, or he gave me my numbers, for the lottery and stuff like that. We looking at horoscopes and we looking at all this stuff. You got to remember that Satan is real. The spiritual realm is real on both sides of this house. Okay, we know it all the way back from the Garden of Eden. So don't play around with stuff that you don't understand, because when you do, if you get pulled in, all of a sudden now you become gullible because you're like, well, hey, them numbers hit, and you like, well, I'm gonna have to keep doing this, right? It's just a matter of, are you going to follow God or are you going to stick with this world? Because something that happened by chance, we know that God don't even deal in chance, right? People talking about, man, I'm sure it's lucky. We, as a believer, we know ain't nobody lucky. If I didn't die in that fire, I'm blessed. If I made it home from work, I'm blessed. We don't fool with luck. God ain't got no luck on. I'm not carrying no horseshoe or nothing like that. All these superstitions and stuff like that. I just want y'all to be careful of that, because just to know that the demonic spirits are real. This woman was a spiritual medium, or witch of Endor, however you want to call it, depending on which translation you're looking at. But the bottom line was, she wasn't using the Lord. She dug in the spiritual realm. Samuel came up. Now, that's because God allowed that situation. Yeah, because my people perish for what? A lack of knowledge. Folks, people, look, man, back then and today, people are not into the word. They into listening. They hear what the preachers say, but they're not going checking it out. They're not building a connection of the relationship to understand what the word is saying. So when you hear it, then you should go process it, right? Because ultimately, when you are giving a witness, it has to be from what you know and you understand. Most people you hear talking about, my pastor said this and my pastor said that and this and that. Well, I heard this preacher over here and I heard, what do you know? Because a lot of times we use that as our ignorance. It sounds good. Now, I heard it all my life, but that don't mean it was right. So we got to do the work. If you do the work, then you be, oh, wait a minute, I think I was told wrong. And so, but that's the education part of it. If you allow church to lead you the way churches operate, there's a whole lot of stuff that's just unbiblical. But because it's happening at the church, you consider it to be biblical. But that's and that the same thing happened with the Pharisees. Everybody was looking forward to Pharisees, all the religious leaders, Pharisees, the Sadducees, everybody looking up toward them because they were the highest in the temple. And they were sitting there telling straight lies. But at that time, it was being read to them. Nobody went and, they didn't read the study. Even Saul fell prey until Jesus changed him from Saul to Paul, right? Paul was a strict Pharisee, and he was a scholar. He knew the law, but he knew it so much that he still glossed over the prophetic part, which was pointing to the cross. But when Jesus came into his life, it turned the whole thing around, and he realized that he was the one that was wrong. So you just got to be careful with that. But I just want to kind of point out that yes, God is real. So is Satan and his demonic hordes. And they're going to do everything in their power to keep you from following Christ. And so they may not damage you in a sense of you going to glory, but if you following everything that this world does, who are you going to help? Nobody. Because people be like, oh man, no, you say one thing, but then you do something else. We have to be consistent, and that's what this part right here speaks out to me, and this woman knew, because she, like I said, she knew what she wasn't supposed to be doing. And now if she was following God, then why would she not be able to do it? Right? It said that he went and checked all the prophets and everything else. Nobody could give him what he wanted. So then he went outside of God. That's how come he always stayed in trouble anyway. It became about him. It became about Saul. I'm the king. I've done all these things. Okay, we see where this is going, right? So you allow the enemy to come in. The enemy influences you. Then all of a sudden you operating through the enemy and not through God. So let's stay away from that. Any questions or comments at home? Add into takeaways.
Right.
What's up, Red?
I knew about that years ago. The Bible said about going to the signs and going to mediums and stuff.
Yeah.
I knew that before I really knew about the Bible.
You had the right people around you.
Yeah. But I did.
Let's go to 2 Samuel. No, not 2 Samuel. Yeah. 2 Samuel. I don't feel like doing like that. 11th chapter.
Yeah.
Now, we kind of talked about this when we did the life of David, but I kind of want to hit it again and just explore it just a little bit more, since we are dealing with women in the Bible. Once again, like I told you, women can make you or break you. It all depends on their motive, and it also depends on your understanding of who you with. So 2 Samuel 11, beginning at verse 1. In the spring of the year, at the time when the kings normally conduct wars, David sent out Joab with his officers and the entire Israelite army. They defeated the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David stayed behind in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from it. It's always in the evening, right? Nighttime, ain't nothing going on. You kind of bored, Yeah. They defeated the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David stayed behind Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of his palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. Now, this woman was very attractive. Okay, so, David is in his palace, and Bathsheba is going through her ritual, her cleansing from her period, and she's out on her balcony, taking a bath. She's cleaning up. It's her property, her space. Should be no issue, right? Okay. David is in the evening, he's taking a stroll, and he happens to see something that catches his eye. Now, this woman was very attractive, so we know she was beautiful. So once again, men are visual. The attraction is a lot of times before you even get to know somebody, is always the attraction that kinds to get you going. Especially if I don't know them, if I haven't seen them, the first thing, at least as for me, I'm looking like, oh yeah, I need to get to know her. Why? Because she's attractive. She's fine. I saw my wife. I was like, oh yeah, I need to talk to her. Now, if she had been ugly, according to, because that beauty is an eye of the beholder, according to me, I'm like, well, yeah, yeah, I don't have no time for that, right? And then all of a sudden, this same woman who I thought didn't look good, I end up working right next to her, right? So as I work next to her, we develop relationship. And then all of a sudden, who I thought wasn't so attractive is now super attractive. Why? Because now the artificial part is gone. And the reality sets in that this person is beautiful inside. And if they're beautiful inside, they become beautiful outside. It don't have to matter what nobody else look at or see. It's like, it's what you feel based upon that relationship that you have. But still, when it comes down to men, the first thing we do is visual. So if it's visual, half the time we won't even get to the attractiveness of somebody inside because we're so superficial, right? But then as we get to know them, then we know, okay, I'm not staying here, or okay, I got the right one, because not only is she beautiful outside, but she's beautiful inside. So here's David, the king. He sees this attractive woman, right? She minding her business. So David sent someone to inquire about the woman. The messenger said, "Isn't that Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" So now he sent somebody to figure out who she is. They tell him who she is. Now, being a man of God, the king, anointed, that should have been enough to say, okay, all right, let me go back inside then. Let me go. I got 3 wives right now anyway. Let me go back in here, and get with somebody that already belongs to me, right? That's not what happens. Because number one, he's the king. He has the power. He has authority, right? Okay. So David sent some messages to get her. All right, wait a minute. I just told